Alright guys, welcome back to Batdog Garage. In today's video, I'm going to take all these products on the table and stuff them in that Audi. There's 6 products here. This is all sound deadening treatment from Second Skin. I've got Spectrum, Damplifier Pro, Heatwave Pro, Megazorb, Overkill Pro, and mass loaded vinyl. Most people, when they do sound deadening, they use a product like Damplifier Pro. Generic band-aid type term is Dynamat. So most people will Dynamat their doors, Dynamat their trunk, and call it done. That's one of the 6 items I have on the table here. So we're going to go very in depth in this video. I'm going to show you where and why I'm using each product the way I am, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. So let's get to it. Now before I start applying sound deadening, I need to get in here and clean the interior of this car. So I'm going to show you, I never shot video of gutting everything in here. You guys can see it is completely empty. Everything is out. So what I'm going to do is vacuum the entire floor, vacuum all of this stuff that you see, and whatever the vacuum doesn't get, I'll come back with a bucket and some simple green. It'll get scrubbed down and I'll get it down to bare metal, and then I can go ahead and start applying Damplifier Pro. So first step, clean everything and then come in, start applying material. So now we're going to start cleaning. So what I'm doing now is just spraying diluted simple green on everything in the car, and then I'm going to come in with the scrub brush, scrub everything. And I've got a few different ones to get into nooks and crannies, but you want to scrub everything and dislodge all of the years of kids' drinks and juices and stuff that have collected back here. And once we get down to clean metal, I know I said bare metal earlier, but we want to get down to clean metal and get all of this kids' snacks off the floor of the vehicle. At that point, once we get all this stuff off, we'll come back with some Windex and just wipe down any residue that's left behind by the simple green, and then we'll be ready to actually apply the Damplifier Pro. This vehicle isn't bad. The rear seat area obviously is where the kids were and they spilt stuff, but the rest of the vehicle is pretty good. So the rest of the vehicle I can just wipe down with a damp cloth and that'll be ready for deadener. But this area right here was the worst of it. It really needed some attention. So now I'm just going to go through, brush it, wipe it down, and get going. These guys are pretty much good to go. You can see here that was juice or soda from the kids that was spilled back here. So now we just wipe it down and then go through final cleaning. As you can see, the front is pretty good. That's just wear. These black marks are just wear. There's a potato chip. So as I ran the air compressor, I blew stuff out of the center console, and as I did that, potato chip flew out, some more random stuff. Over here you can see there was a drink that was spilled. I'll wipe that down. But yeah, at this point, that's just ready to be wiped up and it's ready to go. So you guys can see how much better that looks already. It doesn't take a long time to do this. I think I spent maybe a total of 5 minutes back here cleaning this area. So over here you can see some moisture where I cleaned the Coke spill. I'll go ahead, go through the front of the car real quick the same way, and then come over the entire car with Windex to get rid of the kind of slimy residue that's left from simple green. And once I wipe it down with Windex, clean it with Windex real good, the entire thing will be ready for Damplifier Pro. So before I apply Damplifier Pro to the front of the vehicle, there's a few things I want to remove. I need to get this air vent out of the way. I've already loosened the cables that run here. You can see this. But right here, the plug that goes to the seat, I need to get this guy loose so that I can lift this out of the way and get deadener on the floor. Trick to do, once you've taken the screws and nuts out, put them back in place. This is going to help you when you come back and you apply deadener, because if you see, say, in areas where there's clips like this on the side of the vehicle, if you see those fasteners in place, you know those fasteners have to go back. So by doing so, by going ahead and putting them in place, you know that this is going to be an issue when I start assembling panels later if you don't address it as you make progress. So I'm going to go ahead, put all the fasteners back in place. As you can see, when I removed the seat bolts went back in. So always put your fasteners back, makes them easy to keep track of. So all of this is loose. I do need to raise this guy up. There we go. That's loose. So now I can apply deadener all through here. Easy. Alright guys, I've already started application of the Damplifier Pro, and I've come to a point where I want to show you guys, before I proceed, I want to show you something that I want to use that is not sold for car audio market. It's not anything that people typically do. I do this because I happened upon it. Someone did it years ago, and it's always worked for me since. There's been a couple of vehicles that I've done here where the people have actually let me do this, and they're absolutely impressed with the results. So let's take a look here. I've started application of the Damplifier Pro, and I've come all the way down and I've gotten to this point. Now at this point, I'm coming to this area where the seat bolts. There's seat bolt there, here, and here. You've also got this raised area here, like an empty trough in there. So I'm not going to be able to apply Damplifier Pro in this area. I'm also not going to be able to apply it across here and up inside here. I can reach and get a little bit in there if I really try. So what I'm going to do is show you guys a material that I've had people see it in the past and see me use it and say, well, you can get the same effect with 25% coverage with CLD. If that were the case, I wouldn't go through the extra step to do what I'm doing here. So let me show you this product, and I'm going to show you how I'm using it. So this is Rockwool Safe and Sound. You get a package of this. It comes in 12 bats, and each bat is 3 inches by 15.25 by 47. What this stuff is made for is to go in the framing of your house to absorb sound. So this stuff is fire resistant, absorbs sound, and it's water repellent. This does not absorb water. It's not going to mildew over time. That's the reason I don't have an issue putting it in a car. This is not fiberglass insulation. It's actually mineral wool. It's made from, they basically heat rocks, melt it, draw it out to a fine strand, and that's how they make this stuff. So we take this to the car, and what I'm going to do is pull pieces of this, and we're just going to start stuffing it into the void that I cannot get material, when I say material I mean Damplifier Pro, into. So I'm just going to keep tearing this and pushing it into that empty cavity. Now listen to this now. Hear the ringing in that cavity? As I add this in there, that ringing will go away. The whole cavity will become quieter. So now I'm just going to keep stuffing it in there, and I'll come back and let you guys hear it when it's actually full. So this is how much of that bat that I have left, and it wasn't a full bat. You know, it had been partially used in the past, but to show you how much I used, that's the remainder of what you saw earlier. And that is all right now living in this cavity. So this is the test to show you guys the reason I'm doing this. Remember before when I tapped on this how it rang? Let's listen to it now. That's dead. So at this point, like I said earlier, Damplifier Pro, create the trough to run cables through, and then just stuff. And once I stuff all of this, Damplifier Pro is going to go over the entire area. So I just filled this underseat cavity on the driver's side with mineral wool. So with that filled, I can now go ahead and apply Damplifier Pro over the top of it. Up to this point, I've used 21 sheets of Damplifier Pro on the vehicle, and I'm now pulling out the last sheet in the bulk pack. The bulk pack of Damplifier Pro is 36 square feet, and that is 22 sheets. So to give you guys an estimate of how much you'll need for your vehicle, I've done the entire footwell on both driver and passenger side so far with 21 sheets. I'm going to use sheet number 22, and it looks like it'll take one more to completely cover the footwell. So another tip, remember I told you always put the hardware back when you take it out. One thing I ran into on this Audi is, you can see I'm having to unscrew this. The driver's side left rear seat bolt was actually cross-threaded when it came to me. You can see how far that threads in. That is how it was in with the seat mounted. It was never fully tightened. So I'm going to have to run a tap through here, clean that up, and if I don't use a die to clean the threads, I'll just get a replacement bolt, either from the dealership or from the junkyard. So now we go ahead and lay this out, figure out what size we need. Second Skin will tell you to make a template, measure, to cut. A lot of times you can lay it out and just make folds and find out where you need to cut. You can take a Sharpie, draw on the back side, but a lot of times I just go ahead, put it in place, and okay, I need to cut here. And a scrap piece of MDF in the vehicle makes it easy to just cut. Use a razor knife, scrap piece of MDF, and you've got your cutting board. And there's that. So we're going to cut right down there. Tuck that under. There we go. Now there are several types of rollers you can get. Some companies have rubber rollers. I prefer the wood roller. The wood roller just compresses the material down, presses it down better. The rubber rollers tend to just kind of squish over everything. You can't press in around contours of things. So always use a wood roller. You're going to get better results. Now I'm not going to get into a detailed installation of Heatwave Pro. The stuff is amazingly easy to work with. It forms well to the contour of the vehicle, much better than the closed cell foam thermal barrier that I've used in the past. To put it in place, you can use your choice of spray adhesive or double-sided tape. I choose the double-sided tape because I don't run the risk of overspray with spray adhesive in a vehicle. Scissors to cut it. Aluminum tape. You're going to use the aluminum tape anywhere you have a seam and around some of the perimeter edges of the Heatwave Pro. I say some of the perimeter edges. You're not going to use on all of them, and I'll show you that in just a minute. The key thing to keep in mind when installing this is thickness. Everywhere you install this, you're adding thickness to the vehicle. On top of the Heatwave Pro, we're going to be adding mass-loaded vinyl. So if you figure 3/8 of an inch thickness on Heatwave Pro and 1/8 of an inch on mass-loaded vinyl, we're adding 1/2 an inch. And we still have to put the factory carpet back in place and put the factory panels back in place. So the first issue I'm going to have here, and it may not ever be an issue, but I want to ensure that it's not, is this underseat air vent. This underseat air vent, I'm fine with having the additional thickness throughout most of it. But this H-beam, where the seat bolts to the floor pan, I've got the high point here where the outlet for the underseat air vent is. So I want to trim this 9 by 2.5 inch area on this trough and make sure that my air vent sits as low as possible. Another area to look at is along the center console. If you see how high this is, you guys can see this. You see how high this is. As you add this and then your mass loaded vinyl on top, and then when you come in and put the factory carpet back in, that can cause a fitment issue when you try to drop the console in place. So to eliminate that, this looks high, but if you drop this down and pull it and stick it down in place, you can see it's much lower once I tape it in place. So it's going to be lower, and then I can run my console and drop it in place and not have a fitment issue. Things to look at: don't overlook fitment. One last thing to look at is, I told you we're going to run aluminum tape on the edges. We're going to run that along the console, but we're not going to run that over here near the doors. On each side of the car at the doors, you do not want to tape this stuff in place, and the reason for that is all your factory wiring's here. If you tape this in place, you run the risk of maintenance being an issue, especially stuff like this door. When people seal off areas that when you take the vehicle to the dealer and the technician's going to have access, a lot of times they don't care. They just rip stuff apart so they can get to it. Factory stuff they can work with. If you install it so that it's easily accessible in a factory manner, it's going to be much easier for them to do maintenance on the vehicle. So keep that in mind. Now I want to talk to you about treating doors on a car. As you can see, this product here is Sonic Barrier. Guys, I'm never going to recommend Sonic Barrier to anyone. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you guys now, do not ever buy this stuff. And this is the reason. See how this stuff has melted and ran in the car? See how it just melts? Everywhere you look where this stuff is exposed, it has ran. It's actually dripped into the door seals of the car. See where it's ran here? Over here it's ran and it's dripping down. Again over here it's running and dripping down. So all of the exterior seams on this, anywhere that the material is, you're at the edge of it, it has just dripped and ran and made a mess of the car. If I come under here, you can see where it's dripped and ran there. So that mess is inside the door panel. And on the passenger side, we're clean here, but on the driver's side, it had dripped onto the door sill. So I'm going to go ahead and rip all this off. I've been dreading doing this. I never recommend applying deadener over the entire surface like this with no way to access the inside of the door card or the door skin. So let's look at the back side of this, and if I tap on this, we've got deadener here, but I move away from it and it's not as dead. I can tell that there's not deadener in the entire portion on the outer door skin. Some people will say you only need 25% coverage, but reality is the more damping material you have, the more resonance you're going to reduce. It's just like anything where you hit a point of diminishing returns, and ultimately it's your car. Do what's going to make you happy. You don't have to just nickel and dime and just, okay, I'm going to scrimp and save here and just apply a little bit of deadener. Do it once, be done with it and never have to go back in again. And if you do have to go back in, make sure when you treat the inner portion of the door that you have access to the inside of the door for maintenance. The way this is, if it goes into the dealer, they're just going to rip this shit off and destroy your sound deadening. So I get to start the process of ripping all of this out of the door, removing it, cleaning the door panel, and actually applying some quality products like Second Skin Damplifier Pro and some other stuff. So let's start pulling this off. I've already started pulling this sonic barrier off, and I'm fortunate that what's behind here is not what I'm finding at the edge, and that's just melted material. If this stuff melts and it drips and runs down the doors, and you're unfortunate enough to install it, say above your headliner, on the roof of the car, on your trunk, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to run and drip and create a mess in the vehicle. So things I'm finding here already is that someone created a thin aluminum, really thin, you can see it flexing here, plate, and they put in place, and they just slathered sonic barrier across the entire door after they did that. The best thing to do is, if you're going to put panels in place to cover openings in the door, go ahead and treat those panels separately, then attach them. I'll show you guys that later. But for now, I'm just going to get busy pulling all this stuff off, and then I'll show you how to clean it later. So there's one piece off, and again, if you're going to build pieces to cover areas on the car like this, treat this piece, then apply it to the car. That way whoever comes to it can see where the fasteners are and remove the panel using the fasteners, instead of having to rip the deadener apart and then search and hunt for the fasteners. So again, easy stuff. This is actually, it's got some treatment on the back there, so trash. Now what I am finding is in some areas here, I'm going to show you this, some areas here, see where we're stuck. We were stuck here, we were stuck here, we weren't stuck. If you look in there, it's not even stuck down. So it was just kind of generally applied. There are a lot of air gaps, like right here. There's a gap where it wasn't touching. That's not what you want when you treat one of these cars. So right here, see that gap in there? So this whole area was just space that wasn't treated. If you're going to use the material, if you're going to go through the time to do this, make sure you're getting the benefit of the product that you're using. If it's not stuck to the surface, it's not doing anything. You can see how soft and stringy this is. That's horrible. The good news is I can scrape it off fairly easily, and once I get this door scraped and clean, then I can come back and get what's left off of the door. But this is going to take a while. It's going to be tedious. So take a look here. You can see where this was stuck right around here and along this edge. This is another big area that was just dead, that didn't get actually treated. You can see where it tore. It was stuck here. You can see the tear line here. This whole area was just not treated. So again, even though this isn't a great product, this is a product that was used and not properly applied. So look, all through there, that area just wasn't treated. So this was just a waste of material in this area here. So I'm going to have to remove this and get the rest of this off. So I had a bit of a battery failure and I missed it, but all I did was remove 3 Torx screws here, pull the window motor out, drop it out of the way so I could get to this area in here and get this cleaned up. I could go ahead and unplug everything, but for now I'm just going to let the motor hang there and work inside here. So at this point I'm just spraying WD-40 on what's left of this sonic barrier, and now at this point I can take a plastic scraper and just go over the remnants of this, and the WD-40 will soften it and break it down, and you can see it running down the door. That's just WD-40. So it's all, the reason WD-40 works is because this stuff is asphalt based, and as you guys know, asphalt contains a lot of oil. So WD-40 will take it right off. You can get the majority of it with a metal scraper like this and get, you know, as you saw earlier, the main portion of it off. You come in with WD-40 and you can get even more off, and then for the final cleaning you come in with some WD-40 again and then a green pad. But you can see the difference, and see here that I already scraped that area. That's just ready to be wiped and cleaned off. One thing you will need to do after you've used the WD-40 and the green pad, you've got this down to clean metal, is come in with a degreaser and get the oil-based residue from the WD-40 off of the door. This isn't a difficult process, it's just nasty and time consuming. You see me wiping on the floor here. On the floor I have ram board down, ram mat. Ram mat is stuff you see in the construction industry. They put it down to protect the floors. Same thing I'm doing here, keeping my garage floor from becoming a gooey mess. So that's all we're doing. And as I've sprayed this with WD-40, it doesn't require as much effort to remove it because it is breaking down. And you guys saw me with the metal scraper earlier trying to get this stuff off the door. It took a good bit of effort, but with the WD-40 on there, it just breaks it down. It's just a smooth removal. So that is what I will be doing for the next couple of hours, cleaning this door. A couple of hours at least. So I'm about three and a half hours into cleaning this door, and I'm finally to the point that I can just start spraying WD and wiping down the large majority of what's left on this door panel. Now, after I get this cleaned off with the WD-40 and get it down to a surface that looks like this, I'm gonna have to come through with a degreaser and go ahead and get all of the oil residue from the WD-40 off the door. But you can see this isn't extremely difficult to do. It is very time consuming. All you're going to do is use the WD-40 to break down the material, and then I used a plastic scraper on the door, just from the Bojo toolkit. So use the plastic scraper and then just go over the door with WD-40 to soften it, the scraper to remove it. And if you notice, as I spray like right here, I'm going to leave that and you'll see how it'll run down. The WD-40 just dissolves the stuff, breaks it down, softens it, and then you're left with just a mess running down the door. Now, in the past, when discussion about this product has come up, people have said that they've used it and it worked well for them. It will work. The issue is it melts, and if I go to the trash can, I'm just pulling stuff out of the trash. Now this did not have WD-40 applied to it. It was just sitting, and you see how it's just kind of exposed to the air, and it's shiny. It looks wet. It was not like that when I pulled it out of the vehicle. This stuff, I don't know, I'm not a fan. It doesn't seem so much about heat, but exposed to air. This is just where I pulled it apart, and as I move that, you guys should be able to see in the video where it all just looks melted. And this isn't because of me putting WD-40 on these pieces. These were all pulled off and thrown in the trash. It just kind of melts. So save yourself the hassle. Don't buy it. You can see how it's ran down here. And again, that's just spraying WD-40 and it runs. It just dissolves. So the reason it does that is that it's asphalt based. And if it's asphalt based, you're always going to be able to remove it with something as simple as WD-40. Now that that door is pretty clean, it's time to come in, and I say pretty clean. The majority of the stuff is off. I've got more to get off around here. I can use like an old toothbrush, and then right here on the bottom of the door, I've got something to get off where it is melted and ran down under there. So I'll get those off, and then I'll clean this door skin and the outer door skin and the back of this with a degreaser, and then I can actually start applying proper sound deadening to the doors. So I think that's where I'm going to end on this video. I still need to do the driver's side door, but there's a lot to cover sound deadening in this car, and I didn't want to skip anything. I wanted to make sure I was detailed about everything I was doing here, because for some reason sound deadening is something that people, you know, they don't mind spending a ton of money on speakers and amplifiers and processors, but when it comes to sound deadening, I guess it's because they can't see it. There's no there's no wow factor for sound deadening. You don't get the same, I guess, the same enjoyment. It's not anything you see, but it's something that's more hidden, tucked away, and isn't as noticeable. A lot of people, they get in the car, they see the speakers, and they're wowed by the speakers that you have. They're wowed by the amplifiers. They're wowed by the visual that they can see on the install. But for the good installs, it's the work you can't see that makes a difference. So this is about the point where I go ahead and stop the video, stop talking, and I will see you guys in the next video.